Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show, Gary's here and we've got a bit of insider news to catch up on, a bit of Surface Duo and some other Windows insider news, but we're mainly going to be focused on some EV updates. It's been a couple of weeks since we talked EV, so Gary's got some updates on the state with electric vehicles. There's a lot of news around, and he's got a couple of interviews for us as well. So we've got a packed show, so let's get straight to Gary. Gary, good evening.
Good evening, Ian. It's good to be back.
Yes, glad to see you back.
I did enjoy last week's show. I was listening to that in the car yesterday. It was really good.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, it was good fun. And we still do have our special show that we've already recorded, but it's probably going to go out next week. So that's going to be interesting. But we have a special show coming out soon as well. So I think listeners will enjoy that. Well, there's not a huge amount of news around this week because it was Thanksgiving in America last week, so there wasn't a lot of Windows Insider news. But we do have one exciting bit of Windows Insider news as we record this on Tuesday evening. Paint has been updated.
Is that exciting?
Yes.
It is kind of. I mean, some people are going to be up in arms about paint changing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw a sort of tweet the other day said, "Don't touch my paint otherwise I'm coming after you with a pitchfork."
Yeah, I think paint and notepad, isn't it?
Yeah, they're the two. But yeah, I think paint. I actually quite like the look of the new paint.
Yeah, and they've been quite subtle with them. It's just minor changes, isn't it, rather than a whole new look and feel to it. And of course, it's delivered through the store now as well, so it's not don't need a new build of Windows 10 to Windows 11 to get the new features.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, so I quite like that. So yeah, I think they've changed the color picker and the resize picker and some other bits and pieces just to make it look a bit more Windows 11 like, which is a good idea, I suppose. But I think that was the only Windows Insider news we've kind of had in the last week, because we didn't have any builds last week because it was Thanksgiving. So hopefully we're back with a build this week that we can talk about next week on the show or the week after. There was one other bit of I should say as well. We've got a bit of EV chat more than probably normal this week because you've got some good news for us as well, interesting news. But there was one other thing on the Windows front I want to talk about, or in fact it's Android really, is the Surface Duo's Outlook was updated. I think it's a separate app, but it was updated and you can now use pen input for it. I like how having a backdrop makes things disappear. Actually, look at that, pen's gone and then it's back.
Magic.
I'll put it in front of my face. Yeah. So if you use the Surface Pen, you can now compose emails with including the pen as well, which you couldn't do before, which is even on the original Duo. So you actually think that would have been a good idea to have that for some time, actually, really, but it wasn't the case. So you couldn't use pen on it. So now you can. I can select the pen input and I can write with the pen on there. There we go. We get a little. Oh, it's not gonna be able to see this with the turn the background. You get a little pen. Yeah, you get a little pen input, and you can draw with the pen. So
I mean, it's taken what 25 years to get back to where we were with Newton.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh. Newton's over there. If only they would add the sound effects now to the Newton to Surface. That'd be great if they added those little pings, bing. That sound.
The scrub outside was always my favourite. The rub out.
Oh yeah. I've always. Yeah, that was. And the great thing, I used to take my Newton to meetings because I think I've probably told this story many times. But I tried to remember. I think it was '93. I got mine from Dixon's, as it was then, now known as Curry's, probably in Preston, and it was on offer and it was ridiculously cheap. And I think they must have had these Apple Newtons in the stores for some time. They were just getting rid of them basically, and I'd never even heard of them because it's kind of pre-internet, that, isn't it? So yeah, I hadn't even heard of it. I had I think I had a Casio organizer before that, and saw this thing. I thought, this is brilliant. And so I carried it around with me everywhere and went to meetings. But it was quite a big, bulky thing compared to you couldn't pocket it. It wasn't quite as that, but it was great for meetings. And you used to draw a line to create a new page, and and do the paper sounds. A fantastic device that. I still love my Newton. But yes, anyway, it is. Yeah, we're back that with pen support now. So yeah, maybe we should have Windows tablet edition on it. That would be good. So yeah, so Windows XP tablet edition. They were going back in time then.
I'm sure you could port that somehow.
Yeah. In fact, I saw that I was playing about installing some old versions of Windows again recently, and I saw the Freestyle and the other, I can't remember the code name for XP tablet edition. There was XP tablet edition, XP Media Center edition, were subsets of Windows XP, weren't they? Or supersets of Windows XP. So I saw those, yeah. So that's the so that was the news on the Surface. I'm still really enjoying my Duo. I use it all the time.
So Duo's ARM based. It's a great little device. Has anybody ported Windows 10, Windows 11 to it yet?
No, and I was reading about this on the XDA developers forum, because this is where it would be done if at all. It has got an unlocked bootloader, so you can do it, but you do need some image from Microsoft apparently to get it down. So I'm sure somebody will do it at some point, but it would have been good to put Windows 10X on there if that was still a thing, because that would have been ideally suited for it with the dual screen support and everything else. Which is I think actually probably what they were thinking of, wasn't it? At some stage, the original Duo was going to be a Windows device, wasn't it? So yeah, it would be good to try Windows 11 on it. Although with Android support as well, you could still run your Android apps.
Yes, yeah, that'd be good. That would be the answer, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And you get the Windows Phone launcher, and and then you're away. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I don't see it. People have got Windows on ARM running on a Lumia 950 XL, which is on an ARM chip, isn't it? So why not run it on one of these? Although not that I'd like to sacrifice my Duo to run Windows 11. But it's fine running Android. So hopefully the Android 11 version for the Duo is due. The original Duo is a potential that's going to come this year as well. So in the next couple of weeks maybe. So if not, it could be the new year. So that would be good to get that upgraded to Windows 11, because the Duo 2 runs Windows 11. Actually, we haven't talked about Windows 12L. I don't know whether you've even got into doing any development on that yet. No,
I haven't yet. It was came as a bit of a surprise that was actually even available.
Yeah, so it's like a specialist version of it's a branch, is it? A version of Windows of Android 12 specifically for foldables and large screen devices. Yeah. So it could potentially what the next Duo runs, and even get this Duo updated to that as well.
I think that seems quite likely that will be the next. Whatever the next Duo is, if it's going to be a Duo or something different, maybe even.
Yeah, I still like to see the Neo, but I don't think we're going to see. Well, we're certainly not going to see it this year. Whether we'll see a Neo next year of some kind, we'll have to wait and see.
I don't know. It's getting more and more unlikely, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it would be great for browsing on the sofa and that kind of thing, but I don't know. I still think it would be a great device, but if it's nearly 1,500 quid for a Duo, and no idea what the Duo would be, it'd just be too expensive for what it is.
I would, yeah. I can't imagine. Yeah, I mean, I think the Duo's way overpriced as it is. I'm somewhat concerned about anything more expensive than that.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, I'm still loving the Duo. It's a great device, and and it's nice to be able to only carry one phone around now because the camera's good enough.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the camera, because you've played a lot more of that now, haven't you?
Yeah.
So is that? I mean, it's obviously good for these taking photographs. What's it like for videos?
Good videos, yeah. I've taken quite a few videos on it, and it's as good as the Galaxy Note 20 that I was using. So no, it's absolutely fine for that. And the main difference is, I think, aside from the quality, which obviously you need, but it's the fact that you can just you just open it up and you can take the picture. The camera button's there, so you just take the picture. You can double tap, and then you get this nice previews on each side as well, which I do like. So as you're snapping away with pictures, you get the previews on the left hand side as you're taking them. So, which you won't be able to see with my backgrounds, but yeah, as I'm taking pictures, you get the preview on the other side, and it never really misses a shot, which is the thing you really want. I did have one interesting bug that I was out the other week taking pictures. I couldn't close the camera app.
No.
So I just couldn't get rid of it. I had to swipe it away, and it would swipe away and come back again. So in the end, I just had to restart it. I've only ever seen that once, but it was quite. It really didn't want to stop taking pictures. It was enjoying itself taking pictures. And
yeah, you're going to carry on taking pictures and never stop.
Yeah. So the camera is really good. The only thing I haven't used it for any video shoots yet that I've uploaded on YouTube, mainly because most of the videos that I've done recently with the camera have been about this, so I had to use another camera for it. But and my tripod, I don't think the little tripod will quite fit that in. It is quite a big phone. It's wide, I think. But yeah, it is good. Camera is good. No issues with the camera at all. And I think I showed off a couple of night pictures that I did with the coloured lights, everything that was when I was out. That worked out really well. So yeah, really, camera's good, responsiveness good. A couple of UI issues every now and again, but it wouldn't be a Microsoft product without some quirky UI issues every now and again. Yeah, so I really enjoyed using the Duo. Yes, I didn't want to spend too much time on some Windows news because we've got an interview from you shortly, and there was some other EV news that you wanted to talk about as well.
Yeah. So I've literally come hot foot from a premiere of a video I made a few weeks ago, which has only just come off of being embargoed, about a new charging hub, and it's one we kind of knew about because we had an interview with Ian from Osprey a couple of weeks back, and he was talking about having a whole load of new chargers and new hubs, and the first of those, which is a small hub because it's only 4 chargers, is at Wolverhampton, has now opened, and myself and fellow EV driver Martin Pitt were kindly invited by Osprey to go and have a look at it, and we covered it really well. And these Kempower chargers are brilliant. They look like old-fashioned filling tanks. It's really difficult to describe them anything else, but they are basically, because they are satellites to a. So rather than most of the EV chargers are quite big boxes, with lots of screens and everything. Whereas these are nice and thin and narrow, and the cables come out the side, and it looks really impressive actually. I think they look really nice. They've got very nice screens on them as well, very crystal clear, very bright as well, and they're slightly covered as well, so that they should avoid getting covered by rain when it's raining, just because the shape of the way they've got sort of like indented into the unit. And they come with both CCS and CHAdeMO charging. CHAdeMO is at 50 kilowatts, CCS is at 150 kilowatts at around about 300 amps. So it should work with most 400 volt based chargers. So it should give you round about as much as your car will take. I mean, one of the really nice things about them is the screen actually tells you when it's the car limiting the charge rate rather than the charger.
Right.
Which is quite often, people just don't understand the whole charging thing. We've spoken about this on the show before, that as you get closer to being full, it slows down charging. When it's cold, it slows down charging. So these are, I was getting around about 60 kilowatts charge rate, and I was quite nearly full. I mean, I was getting up at the 70-80% mark, which you normally wouldn't get anywhere near that. And as it went over 80, it did start to come down a bit, but a nice steady charge curve. And there's some really nice features, like there's a QR code actually on the screen. You scan that and it gives you a copy of what's actually on the screen, so you can then go walk away with your phone and you can still see what's on the screen.
Oh, that's nice. Brilliant.
I think they should.
So you can see when it's charged and that kind of thing.
I mean, I just can think of so many ideas, so many places where that would be really useful to just be able to take information with you just by scanning the QR code. And I thought it was really cleverly done, very easily done. And one of the things I didn't actually spot on the day, but if you tap part of that screen where it's got sort of an image of the battery, it then gives you the actual charge curve, so you can see how you're charging and over time, which is lovely. That information is so useful. So I was really impressed with that, and I thought that was an excellent concept. But it's nice things like they have very easy to use operation. It's just like you can do it in any order. A lot of these chargers you have to think about it tells you on the screen, plug in first, then tap the screen, and then tap the credit card. Well, this one, if you plug it in, it then prompts you on the screen that you've used this, you've plugged it in with this cable, or if you tap the start button on the screen to say start using this cable, it tells you to plug the cable in. It's sensible. Now, about a year ago, I came up with my quotes charging manifesto, and that was one of the things I talked about, making it simple to use. And this is really simple to use. You literally just plug it in and then pay and go. Now, it's unusual. The UK versions have actually got debit card and credit card readers on them, because virtually everywhere else in Europe they use account-based systems for charging with these things, and I think that's eventually how we'll go in this country as well. Although credit and debit card is really nice and convenient. I mean, if you could set it up so that when you plug the car in, it starts charging and you don't have to think about paying. That's the way to go, really. But yeah, plugged in, starts charging, and it did just start charging. Very nice support. The cables have got really nice strong supports on them, so they feel light, although they're quite hefty cables, because they're able to take that charge rate. And the nice thing about them is there's 4 of them there, because normally I suspect Osprey would have only been able to put 2 of the original style chargers in here, because the amount of power they've got available to them is limited by what they can get from the grid at that point. And I suspect if they'd actually spec 2 150 kilowatt normal chargers, that would have been as much as the grid would allow them to take. But the clever thing about these chargers is they load balance. So I was mentioning that as you get more charging, it drops off. Now, if I come in and I'm starting to get in full, if the next person comes along and they're half empty, they'll start taking more charge, and I'll start dropping off, and it'll just balance between the two. So it's really rare that all 4 chargers would want to have full power at the same time. Then it might
you'd have to have 4 people arrive empty at the same time.
And that might be slightly frustrating for those people at that time, because it may well be that one of them gets balanced. But on the other hand, also it's different vehicles. A lot of different vehicles would want to take less charge. If you turn up in an old I think of it as one of the cars which only takes 50 kilowatts, old MG ZSEV, which takes 80 or something like that, which can't actually take that full amount. And I come up in my car and I can take up to 100, and then someone comes along and can take up to 150. You can see how that would work still, that there'd be load balancing going across there. It just really works. It surprised me how well it worked. But yeah, it was a very good experience. I mean, obviously we got early access, and it wasn't actually fully live at the time, so we couldn't test things like the payment methods and how that worked. But the actual rest of the process was really good. I think the only thing I would probably say about it hasn't got a cover over it, and I know there's some reasons with that. One of the problems with canopies is, as Ian said on the interview, they do tend to attract undesirables potentially. People gather under them because it's the shelter in the rain, and your charging hub becomes a local gathering point. So that's probably partly why. But it has got good lighting. It's very close to a Costa Coffee, so you've got good facilities near you. It's just off a very busy road, so it makes a lot of sense. It's kind of an urban hub. It's one of those big busy. It's a busy road between Wolverhampton and Birmingham, basically. So it's a road which isn't a motorway or anything like that. So it's not motorway services or anything like that. But it's exactly where you want to have that charge, and I think it's going to be very busy. And will work really well. And it's really nice to see new infrastructure coming in, which should be reliable. Because I think we've had one of the biggest problems we've had with the charging infrastructure in the UK is there was an awful lot of investment made up front to install a lot of chargers, and then they just haven't been maintained, but also the equipment hasn't been particularly reliable. And I think that's actually what's given it quite a bad name. And I think these will be much more reliable, and therefore over time you'll people find that become less of an issue when these things go out. I mean, it is interesting how chargers make the actual manufacturing of chargers makes so much difference to how reliable they are. I mean, it's like which is what a lot of our listeners go to charger at point, because they're just so reliable. Part of that reliability is down to the fact they've used tritium chargers up to now. Now the BYD chargers they've got recently, I've heard of quite a few people in the last few weeks having problems with them getting charged. So and that's really unusual for Instavolt. You don't usually hear of any problems with Instavolt. So and they're sorting it out. I mean, they're very proactive and they're sorting it out. So I'm sure that will be sorted. But that's the sort of thing where I think, because a lot of the money which is out there and government grants, etc., have been for installing chargers, there's not been the money to maintain chargers. So certainly a lot of councils have taken the money to install chargers and they've completely forgotten about them and never actually done anything with them. Never taken them.
Yeah.
And that's always the problem with this sort of stuff. I mean, I think now, because we have reached that tipping point on EVs, we really have got the number of sales of EVs. I mean, this recent survey which is done, I think, by the motor industry, had said that for the first time ever, more people are intending to buy an electric car than a petrol car.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, I was going to ask you about isn't there some proposal coming through so new houses have to have electric charging?
Yes, yeah. So that's the other big point actually since the last time we talked. So this is coming in. All new constructions, be them houses, flats, industrial buildings. Basically, when they're over a certain size, they have to have chargers associated with them. It's great for flats. I think this is one of the first times they've actually enforced this as being got it. So there's two things to this. You some of them have actually got to have chargers, and you've got to have a certain number of chargers, but you've also got to put the cables in the ground to allow for more chargers, which is, I think, is the key thing. Mm-hmm. So going forward, it'll be a lot easier to add extra chargers to so I mean, we talk about chargers. These are actually EV supply equipment, because the car's actually got the charger going. It's really confusing. I always get told off when I buy something with companies when I say that, because they're
big plug sockets, aren't they?
Yeah, they're basically plugs you plug in, but the charger is actually in the car. Think of it a bit like your charger you plug into the power socket. You're plugging the car is actually the charger you're plugging into the power socket, but the power socket controls how much power that charge is getting. But anyway, they are EV supply equipment. But basically, every new house will have to have an EV supply equipment installed with it. And of course, the builders are up in arms about this, because there's a tax on building, as someone said a couple of days ago from the building site. But I think it makes so much sense now that that's going to be done. And my one worry is how it's going to be policed. I mean, I think the government's actually done, for once, they've done a really good job in terms of what they've put in the white paper, in terms of what's got to be installed. It's got to be a decent charger, basically. It's got a 7 kilowatt charger. It's supposed to be untethered, so you can put any cable on it. It's got to be located so it's usable. All these sort of things, which so you could have imagined them putting in the cheapest possible socket and stuck it away somewhere.
In the loft.
Under the loft, so you could get just so they don't met the requirements. But no, it's got to be. There's a lot of regs on it which actually make it. I mean, it actually will be usable, but it's quite how I do that. I mean, the other thing is this also applies to shopping centres and things like that. They've got to start putting chargers in, which makes so much sense. I mean, I've said this for a long time, and actually we've got a part of the interview we've got coming up with Mike Jeffs later. He talks a lot about destination chargers have been really important. I totally agree. I think destination chargers are far more important than putting all these power chargers in on the services, because as we get cars which can do 200 miles, 300-mile range, that usually gets you to your destination in the UK. The problem is then you want to come back. But usually when you've driven 200, 300 miles, you don't just turn around and drive straight back. You're going to stay there for a few hours. And if you could have destination chargers which could top the car up in that time to allow you to go back, that would be the perfect situation. It's what I do. I mean, I quite often drive to Norwich. I get to Norwich, I plug in the car park while I go shopping. 4 or 5 hours later, I can drive back to Peterborough, and I've got full charge. And it's cost me peanuts because it's very cheap. It's subsidised by the car park effectively. So I think that's a model which I think will be really important. I think Ian, again from Osprey, really covered this well when he talked about dwell time in that last interview, where he was talking about the fact that it really depends what you're doing, how long you want to stay on a charger. EV supply. So if you're going to the cinema, you don't want to have to go out halfway through the film to plug your car, which if you're on a Rapid, you would probably have to do. Whereas you really want to charge which charges your car in 2.5 hours. That would be perfect for most
exactly.
cinemas. So you almost need to actually work out the charge rates based on where you are and what you want to do with them, and that's perfectly feasible to do. You can do that. I mean, I can imagine shops 11 kilowatt type chargers would be quite good. That you can get a lot of those in, as opposed to 1 or 2 rapid chargers. I'd like to see more of that. Motorway services. Yeah, you need a rapid charger because you're not going to stay more than 15-20 minutes there. You want to get on the way. Pub, restaurant, maybe again a slightly slower charger because you can spend a couple of hours there.
It's same with the home one, isn't it, as well? That home one, you generally spend more time at home.
Yeah, at home you charge up. And the thing people forget is it's not like a petrol station. It's not like a petrol car. You don't go and make a visit to go and get petrol. You plug it in every night. It's like a phone. You plug it in every night. And if you plug it in every night, you've always got a full tank. And I know some people sort of say it's a real effort to plug it in. It's not. I mean, if you've got your charger in the right place, it's a matter of seconds to plug your car in. And the other great thing about that, and it's the thing I've been loving this week, because I do a little bit of a commute every morning just to drop some things off and come back, is the fact I've got up at 6 a.m. in the morning and my car has been defrosted.
Yes, because you can pre-warm.
Pre-warm it, and it's not running, it's not polluting while it's doing that, and when I'm sitting waiting to do my pickups, I can sit up in the nice warm without an engine running or anything like that, because I've got the heat the battery. So that I think is a real bonus, and it's one of the reasons I think when most people you talk to who've got an EV, there are a few who go back to petrol and diesel. I'm not saying there isn't, because some of them find the charging infrastructure a problem. And in certain areas of the country it still is, although you certainly can make a journey anywhere in the country with the charges are there, but with a bit of effort. But I totally get that people sometimes don't want to make a bit of effort. But yeah, most people you talk to who've got EVs will never go back, because it's the convenience things. It's like this ability to warm the car to get in. And and the other great thing is, because you've got that battery power, and unfortunately a lot of them still use 12-volt batteries to power a lot of the accessories, which I think is ridiculous. But some of them actually are sensible and actually do take the battery. But you can have a lot of these electrically powered charge accessories, which are really good. I mean, the funniest story I heard last week is in the power cuts. One of my fellow YouTubers was keeping his neighbours happy by making them cups of tea and cooking their dinners off his car. He's using the vehicle to load option of the car because power is out everywhere else. So he was one of the few people who could actually do anything.
Yeah, he's still got the power. Yeah, I suppose it's handy. It's a big battery at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it would it certainly would last a very long time making cups of tea and cooking dinner. It would probably, I mean, obviously you can't use a full-blown cooker on it, but using a microwave and that it would it probably lasted 4 or 5 days. the charge you've got in there doing that. It's kind of good. I did a funny story yesterday though. The EV6, which I've mentioned a few times, on which is a really nice car, there is a fault at the moment which Kia are well aware of and are working on fixing, where the heating doesn't always work, which obviously this time of year is not good.
Yeah.
And I had to laugh because someone had come up with a solution for it like this, because it's got vehicle to load. It's actually got a 3-pin socket in the back of the car, a proper 30-amp one, and he plugged a fan heater into it. I'm not sure I totally think that's safe.
How safe it is, but
but it worked.
It's a different way of thinking, I suppose, isn't it? And I think I can see that. I can see the idea behind it. But yeah, I think certainly premium warming your car up. If anybody that's been out scraping ice off the car this week will appreciate that one. And I know we're a bit soft in the UK to extreme weather, but in some places, especially like in some regions in the States, that makes a big difference.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing what you can do. And I think that I think these are some of the advantages that people don't always get about an EV. I think certainly the maintenance side of things is huge. I mean, looking at service intervals and what they actually did on my service. I mean, I think they changed the washer fluid basically, check the tyres, check the brakes, and my car is going back in in February, because that's the end of this one. Maybe it might extend it depending on what I can get to replace it. But at the moment, in the 3 years I've had it, it's got the same tyres as it had when I started. It's got the same brake pads, same brake discs. None of them, and the brakes are nowhere near any wear on them worth actually doing anything, because regen braking all the time, you don't actually use them anywhere near as much as you would do. And this is a big heavy car. If it was a petrol diesel car, I'd probably be going through pads every 6 or 7 months the way they go through them, and tyres probably as quickly. And yet I'm not. And I think, I mean, the tyres actually surprising me, because the car puts a huge amount of torque down. You'd expect it to possibly damage the tyres more, but it doesn't seem to. But yeah, maintenance wise, there's just nothing to maintain really. And I think that's something which people, and yes, they do break down occasionally, but from what JD Power was saying in their survey, a lot of that is down to not the actual fact it's an EV, but more to do with the gadgets which people tend to associate with having an EV. I think Tesla set this off, where they have all the autopilot and all that sort of stuff. There's an expectation that EVs have all that technology to auto steer and things like that, and it's that stuff which tends to go wrong, or the 12-volt battery fails. Because people, and one of the things which happens with EVs a lot is because people sit in them quite a bit when they're charging, and they're playing videos and playing music. They do that without power, although they could switch it on in most cars, and the 12-volt batteries get low, and that causes issues. So I think that's the main causes of problems with them. But actually, the AA have already said that they recover a lot less EVs per sale of EV than they do petrol cars and diesel cars. So they're going forward. I think they'll make a huge difference in that respect. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want to be a garage which bases its profit margins on servicing, because but then maybe have to find a different method of doing it. Maybe I think one of the big things which will come in is subscription models for some of this stuff, like some of the over-the-air stuff and things like that, where you also pay it. You'll probably get it free for 3 years, and then have to pay for it after that. If you
like the traffic information and real time, and all that kind of stuff.
That I can see coming in, because they'll have to make their money somehow. But yeah, I think it was definitely very interesting to see there's some and chatting to people over when I was at Fully Charged, and this is where a couple of these interviews come from. So we've had a lot of interviews from when I was at Fully Charged. There was over 23 and a half hours I think I had a content. So we're spreading it out over time, because obviously people don't want to listen to 23 hours of content in one go. Well, maybe they do. But the interviews we've got today are from real EV enthusiasts, people who've been there from a very early part of the experience, and one of them who is very keen on the eco side of things, and explains a lot of why EVs are good for that in that respect. And sometimes, and to some extent, why they're not, and maybe the alternatives in some cases, but very clear on that. And then the other one, which I love this interview, is with a guy who actually has been running an electric van to do deliveries. Now, he's not doing this in a town centre or anywhere which would be convenient, because there's lots of charges around. He's doing this in the Lake District, going between villages and towns around the lakes. Now, I for a very long time, that was a complete charging wasteland, and nobody had any charge around. And he's been doing it in early vehicles which didn't have a lot of range, and it's a fascinating interview to talk to him. It really is. So those two are coming up later on.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, I mean, it's changing all the time, isn't it? I think the legislation, in combination with improved technology, and is all making it sort of a tipping point that within the next, like I said, each time especially if you get a lease car, each time you have to make that decision: is it the right for you? And
and I think the incentives are there now. The cars are getting better. I mean, it's certainly much longer range. 200 miles is a minimum now for most new cars. Even, I mean, if you look at something like the new MG ZS, which has just come out, I mean, that's a lot of car for the money. It's just sub 30k, and it does 280 miles WLTP, probably about 230 real life miles, which is really good. And it has all the features you could want. And those things there's certainly cars starting to come out which are very competitively priced. There's the Aura Cat, which is a Chinese manufacturer, the Great Wall Motors. And they're bringing out a car which should be sub 30k. So there are cars which are going to come a slightly cheaper rate. I mean, they still need to go cheaper, but if you look at what's happened to cars generally with the component shortage, the prices are just going up and up and up. But yeah, but the great thing about EVs is potentially their lifetime is going to be a lot longer than a diesel or petrol car. Although people always worry about the battery life, if you actually look at that compared to something like a clutch or motor, gearbox, motors, they don't tend to last that long. 5 years, built-in obsolescence almost. Seems to be most petrol or diesel cars, you will have a catastrophic failure of some sort in the first 6 years of life. Whereas an EV, potentially, as long as it doesn't have these 12-volt battery problems, and most of the issues you have with EVs that occur in the first 6 to 12 months of owning one, so they tend to get fixed under warranty, they tend to last forever. I mean, I'm seeing 200,000-mile cars. There's even one 500,000-mile car out in the States, and they're pretty good. I mean, I know people have now got 6-7-year-old EVs which are still going strong. No major issues with them. So, and I think potentially these cars could last you a lot longer than a conventional piston-based car. But obviously there's differences, and I know people make decisions based on other things as well at the moment, and we do need to sort out some infrastructure. Interesting couple of things on that side of things. We talked about the house and flat and something else. So there's also been a big initiative announced this recently about putting battery packs in at motorways services. Now, one of the problems with most of the motorway services is where the location is. Actually getting grid power to them is actually quite tricky.
Yeah.
Laying a lot of cable, a lot of big thick cable if you want to get a lot of power. But they spend probably 14 hours a day where they haven't got a lot of people there. Most overnight, you do get people stopping, but nowhere near the quantities and numbers you do at the peak hours. So one of the ideas is to put massive battery packs in at these services, and so that you actually get those charging up during those quiet periods, and then when everybody turns up in the peak periods, you can charge them off the batteries. Rather than
to give it like a boost, yeah.
Rather than the big power, and maybe put some solar in as well to compensate for that. But there's a government initiative to put that in. I know we're talking huge numbers of chargers going in. There's also an announcement of some more investment from Ionity in the UK, which surprised me because I thought they'd actually decided to not do any more because I hadn't seen anything announced. And one of the interesting things about that is the hub size there. It's not 5 chargers, it's not 10 chargers. It's a lot of chargers. I think someone said something like 20 or more chargers actually going in on this new site. So that's what we're going to see more and more, I think, coming up.
Oh yeah.
And obviously, we spoke about the Osprey hub being small, but that's because of the location. It doesn't need as many chargers there as you do at the motorway services. Services, you really do need 30 chargers plus going forward. The rugby services, which I mentioned before, which has got a lot of chargers, people are now queuing there to get onto the chargers, and that's the change, which is happened in the last few years. I'm hearing that they will start being hubs could be in 20, 25, 30 chargers coming in, which would be good. And the other thing which has been talked about recently as well, Tesla opened up their supercharging network to other cars in the Netherlands as an experiment. Let's see how that's working, and that seems to be going quite well, app controlled. Obviously there are some issues there because Tesla superchargers have very short cables because they know exactly where the charge port is on every single Tesla. It's always in the same location, and there's no standardization on CCS charge ports position, as we've mentioned before. So there's some challenges in doing that, but that again gives a lot more reliability to charging, because one thing about Tesla superchargers is they are reliable because they got all the comms back to headquarters sorted out, so they always know when they go wrong. And they go sort them out. But I do like, and there's a couple of things which I think are really big game changers on charging at the moment. There's MFG Group, which is the motor fuel group, who own an awful lot of garages. They are putting chargers in most of their forecourts now, and they're also doing when they do create a new forecourt, they tend to put in as many chargers as they're putting in petrol pumps. And in some cases, actually more charging. And the good thing about those is that they are manned forecourts. Their business model is to drive people to the shop. They don't want to make money So they keep the price of the charger reasonably low, which is good, but also because they're manned. If something goes wrong with those chargers, they're going to be sorted out, fixed.
Yeah,
So,
someone there,
someone there to report it to. So I think that's huge. The other thing which is big news at the moment is Welcome Break have started putting in their own chargers at their services, which is, I think, surprised quite a few people, and they look like they're going to be quite large hubs with very reliable tritium chargers in them. So I think that's quite good, and we don't know what pricing they're going to be on those yet, but Welcome Break tend to charge quite a bit for things.
Yeah, if it's on a premium spot like a motorway service, if you get petrol there or diesel, you pay a premium, don't you?
You do pay a premium, yeah. But for convenience, I mean, I think, as someone said the other day, that all the Welcome Breaks which are out there have got a lot of chargers around them off the motorway. You could go down, you can usually find a hotel or something which has got a charger within 5 miles of the services, but people just don't want to go off the motorway that far. They'll just go to the services.
Yeah.
So pay the premium if you do that. But yeah, so I think that's probably time to go to an interview.
Yeah. So we'll play back to back. So who are we going to first?
Mike Giles, who's very much key on the ecological side of things, and then we'll go over to talk to the electric van, electric van man. I think that's what electric van driver from the guy in the Lake District. Anyway, he's really good.
Excellent. And before we go to that, so just remind us of your EV channel on YouTube.
Yeah, so I'm currently iPace owner on YouTube. May change that depending what car I change to. We've already changed the name of the iPace Driver Show to the EV Driver Show because we're both looking at other vehicles potentially. But yeah, the iPace owner on YouTube, and I've literally just uploaded the premiere of the video about the Kempower chargers, so people can go and find that and see all about them themselves. And a lot of other content up there, and most of the interviews I cover we've had on here I've got slightly longer versions of on my channel as well, so people didn't get bored too much on the podcast. So that they're all up there. Also you can find me on Twitter at Garry with 2 R's WMA. And I tweet about these stuff nowadays.
And you can find me on Twitter at IS Dixon. So we're going to go out with the 2 interviews now, and we'll be back next week. Fingers crossed we'll have our special guest joining us as well, which will be excellent. So we'll see you next week.
Take care.
Okay. So Mike, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
So what's your background? How long have you had an EV?
Okay, had EVs since 2016.
Yeah.
We had a Leaf, 30 kilowatt hour Leaf.
Yeah.
The dreaded battery heater, but it's been fine. It's done about 60,000 now, and it's only lost one battery bar. But we only really use it, trickle charge it most of the time via solar at home, which I've sold on battery storage at home. We got in 2018. And I've now got an MG ZS EV as well.
Hence the
T-shirt. Yeah. But by trade, I'm a solution architect in retail. But my whole thing is about finding the right solution for the right thing. And in the last few years, my interest has gone into renewables. And if anybody follows me on Twitter will know my opinions on hydrogen, and which are quite well known, I think. And that's where my passion's sort of grown over the last couple of years, and I've got more and more involved in those sort of discussions and trying to put a bit of reality into the situation.
Yeah, which is really true.
Yeah.
So you're driving the MG ZS, obviously
160 miles in the summer, 140 in the winter, I think.
So you got here no problem?
Yeah, actually I didn't, because my wife charged the Leaf last night a bit more, so I was only up to about 80%. So I did actually charge the vehicle Bagnall this morning, which anybody doesn't know, that's still got the old eco-tricity charger on free vend.
Yeah.
One CCS point, but luckily it was free when I got there. So I topped it up there, so I've got about 70 80 miles left at the moment, so I'll top up on the way back again. Probably not there, but
there's good few opportunities around here to charge now.
Yeah, there are, seems quite a lot.
I think all the charging manufacturers thought, we're exhibiting here, we haven't got any chargers nearby.
I was looking at them, I think there's several McDonald's nearby, they've got lots of intervals on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll either charge locally or I'll find somewhere halfway home. But as you know yourself, it's not an issue any longer.
No, it's not. I mean, even with 150 mile range, it's not an issue at all.
No, I mean for me, I think I've said several times to several people today, the ZS, I think they're bringing out a 71 kilowatt-hour version of the ZS EV, 250 mile range. I cannot justify having 30 more kilowatt hours of storage and carrying it around and not using it 95% of the time. For me, the big hump that people are going to go over is this whole idea that I need 250 miles of range. I think Bob Llewellyn said many times, bladder doesn't last a lot longer.
It doesn't.
No.
One of the things I've heard recently, though, which is a counter argument, I can't understand this. There's an anxiety under 100 miles on the range. Once the range meter gets below 100 miles, people start thinking, I need to find somewhere to charge. And I think that comes back to old petrol days when you could run out very quickly from that. And I think that's possibly where.
There's a mindset change that's got to happen, and anybody who's transitioned already early on with smaller range batteries have sort of got that mindset in. And I'm not looking, and I think there's another guy actually on Osprey charging earlier was talking about he's getting an ENIAC. He's gone for the 60 kilowatt hour battery rather than the 80 kilowatt hour battery for very similar reasons, that he doesn't think he needs the larger range. And if you're just carrying redundant batteries around all year, what's the point?
We had I forget which university it was, but we had a gentleman from one of the universities on the last full charge on these interviews, and he was basically expressing this, that smaller batteries, faster charging may be a better way to go than bigger batteries.
It's just a matter, you think about how many kilowatt hours or megawatt hours or gigawatt hours are going to be travelling around this country that are not being utilised unless we get vehicle to grid. Vehicle grid will change it somewhat. Even then, you can still argue that you don't need 90, 100 kilowatt hour batteries unless you're a travelling salesman doing those sort of mileages. If you're going to travel across Europe once a year, hire a Tesla. Don't keep one for 11 months a year and not use it. That's sort of where I'm coming from.
I do get you where you are that. I mean, I'm driving an iPace, as you know, so 220 mile range roughly, 220, 230 in the summer. But I got down to, I think, 10 miles of range left the other day because some issues with a certain charging network which wasn't running.
They've got a big stand here, haven't they?
Yeah, they've got a big stand here. We're letting them Polar, as was BP Pulse as is now. Polar, they were totally reliable. Nowadays I struggle. But yeah, they were totally off the air over the weekend, so I had no chance of charging. In the area I was in, everything was Polar or CYC or Pulse. So nothing was running. Nothing was charging. So and then that's when I felt that having that extra bit of range was handy because I knew I could still get to.
This is all about resilience. One of the big things with the solution, talking about solution architect, the big thing with what you talk about Kempower, their chargers give you that much more resilience. Building that level of resilience in takes away that need.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing that's got to keep pace. And I think you can now see that with Gridserve and Osprey, etc., stepping their games up. That resilience is going to come. And you've got to be sure. If you're sure that you've got a charge within 5 miles that can charge you up, that's the confidence level we've got to keep up. And the more people transition, the more those nervous people they're going to get that are going to buy those extra large batteries. But I can't see it worth carrying 2.5 ton of car around when I'm not going to use it 90% of the time.
And certainly nowadays with the batteries getting smaller and longer range anyway, there's certainly no need for that.
It's things like the Tsunami, which is an excellent, will suit most people's journeys most days.
I mean, the average journey in the UK is around about 30
22 miles.
22 to 30 miles, depending who you talk to.
So I had several conversations about my hydrogen campaign that found out that yes, I need a car that does 400 miles.
I mean, certainly I've had those conversations, less so in the cities, but more country people than out in the countries, where they say, well, my nearest town's 100 miles away, I need to get there and back. And I think,
what are you going to do when you get there? You're going to go there, look at it, and then turn straight around and
which
go
I
again.
think, because I'm a huge believer in destination charging. I think we need a lot more destination charging. We need it. It's a lot easier to put low 7 kilowatt chargers in it as to put 50 kilowatts in it.
That's one of my other campaigns, because I'm also a Green Party member, and I was the Stanford a local council elections last summer. And one of my big things is in Leicestershire, which is my home city, the city council are getting moving on quite well, and we've got park and ride buses now that pure EV. They're transforming the city centre network to now be run off EVs in a few years' time, one presumes. but the county are completely the other end. I mean, I campaigned for about 3 years to get some destination charging in these car parks. But somehow managed to put 30p a kilowatt hour charges in to the destination charges. I think, well, you sort of overprice yourself. That's cheap. That's more expensive than going to motorway service and getting it. You've got to price them right, and that also encourages people to to park them overnight, and those people who can't afford to or haven't got parking of their own, which is obviously always the question you always get. One of the classic ones is, I live in an apartment, I haven't got car park space. Well, you park your car somewhere, and most often it can be in a public car park overnight. So yeah, it's happening, but there's a lot more coordination needed, and that's the bit I'm a bit worried about at the moment. We're still in a bit in the world where, outside of places like Dundee, or where they have embraced it, there's lots of places going around with individual developments that aren't standardised with each other. Yeah. And the risk is, any of these things, when you're supposed to put a national solution in place, there's got to be national thinking and national leadership and guidelines. And putting a pretty charger in a standard design isn't the way forward. You've got to have an infrastructure guru effectively running this thing, and that's what's lacking in my view at the moment.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that the other thing I'm passionate about on that sort of thing is sorting out the planning situation for.
Yeah, I've just been listening to an actual discussion downstairs where they were talking about. I think Ian from Osprey was talking about how he's got the money, he's got the chargers, he's got the high voltage supplies are there. What he's lacking is the land. Yeah. And I totally agree with him on that. That's the big challenge. Is planning takes too long, and then there's too few big landowners who are not all bought into this journey. And again, it needs government. The only way that's going to change is government influence.
Yeah, I mean, there is some government funding out there, and that is swaying a few people. I've seen a couple of the big building companies now looking at using some of their power of land purchase to put EV hubs in. That's certainly going to happen in Northamptonshire quite a bit.
It almost needs a coordinated approach. Otherwise, your infrastructure needs to be in the right places.
Yeah, you do.
And you need a matrix of things, making sure you're never more than 10 miles away from a charge point. Yeah. And some sort of planning preference where if you haven't got a charge within 10 miles, you've got the right to
put one in.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is actually looking at the charging spaces as well. We still are. Most of these are based on the ease approach, where they can just put the parking in a charger on a parking space with very minimal planning permission. But then again, we're on that 1950s planning law for parking, which is based on cars which was that size back then, which obviously now with all the things like side curtains and stuff, all cars have got wider. It's not just the big cars, every car's got wider. And that then leads to accessibility problems, because if you've got two cars parked next to a charger, the doors can't open wide enough to get people in and out, or perhaps disabled or unable to do it. And I think there's a lot to be done on that as well.
So it's a whole national approach. Things like that need to be part of that consideration. Yeah. So, but if you've got different standards in different places, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, it is, and it's very difficult to do that, and how you actually get those standards in place. I'm totally in agreement. I think it's something we can, as the enthusiasts and the people who've got some buy into this, we can start campaigning about it, but it doesn't really, until you get people at a national level listening to it, it's challenging.
It involves long-term thinking, long-term planning, and the way this place works, the way this country works, that is not well designed for that sort of strategy, unfortunately.
Yeah. But it's still, even out of that, we still have a pretty good experience now as an EV driver.
Well, you look at, the interest is just, it's past the tipping point. Yeah. If you look at the hour-long queue I went through this morning to get through into the place.
I remember saying on the first full charge it was the longest ever EV traffic jam, but it's definitely the longer one.
Yeah. I mean, it's very hard now to go on a car journey without seeing an EV. Yeah. And that's only happened in the last 18 months, I think.
We definitely got over the tipping point now. I think I said I called that a couple of weeks ago, that we've definitely gone over the tipping point.
So almost everybody next car will be EV. Yes.
The problem is, I think the infrastructure is not up to tackling that.
And that's why I said, so Osprey and Instavolt, etc., and GridServe, now's your time. Yeah. And that's they're saying their issues with land. Yeah. And we're back to this whole circle. Yeah. No. They can install as many as what GridServe managed to do in 3 months. It's an insane amount of new points. Yeah. And I was lucky enough to go to the opening of the Essex Braintree place. Now, having centres like that, every 50 miles, that solves the problem.
I think they've said what they're doing and what Instavolt are doing with their partnerships will solve the long journey stopover point issue. I think it's still when you get there.
Destination charge. I mean, I went to Bournemouth and we had a hotel there, had 3.3 volt, no, 3.3 kilowatt hour charges underneath, but that's fine. I was stepping overnight, the car was fully charged the following morning. No, you don't. It's not a multi-type infrastructure, but it's the big. I know Premier Inn and etc. are doing work, but it's back to doing it now. Yeah. Now, whereas when Ecotricity started out, you couldn't really see a financial return from what they were doing, and they get a lot of bad press, but they were never going to make much money out doing it 10 years ago. Now, anybody who's in that industry, you can see in the businesses down here now. It's really going to happen.
All right, thanks so much for talking to us.
That's all right.
It's really good. It's really good to see a driver's perspective rather than just the industry's perspective of the day. So that's really
I'm always
good.
happy to speak, isn't it? And
we'll get you back on the show actually, because I'd like to spend a lot more time chatting about this stuff.
Fine,
It's
absolutely fine.
Good. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
Simon, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
So I've been following you on Twitter for ages. Do you want to explain a bit of what you are? Because you go by an interesting Twitter handle.
Lakes Eco Van.
Yes.
Yeah, no, the business is basically a one man and a van, owner operator, but the unique selling point is it's an electric van, and has been for nearly 4 years now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, one of the first, if not the first, individual owner driver with an electric van in the country. So.
And I often talk to people about electric vans. I say, oh no, I couldn't. The range is too low. I can't handle that. But you cope, and being in where you are as well. That's.
Yeah, when I first started, in the whole of Cumbria there was 6 chargers.
Yeah.
So that's come on leaps and bounds now, right? But it was interesting. I really wanted to do it to prove that it could be done.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest with you.
Yeah, and you have proved it can be done.
I have proved that it can be done, yes, and this is with a 22 kilowatt EMV 200 as well. So a modern van wouldn't be an issue at all.
So EMV 200, what's the range on that? As a van?
Now or when it was new?
When it was new. Let's start when it was new, and then we'll go on.
Well, when I first got it, it would be 1995 in the summer, 75, 80, 85 in the winter. It was good.
And were you able to charge mostly back at base then? Or?
No, it was rapid charging. Yeah, overnight. So I'd always start the day with a full tank, for want of a better word, and then rapid charging throughout the day.
With that few charges?
That was free charges, that was free charging for about the first 8 months to a year, something like that.
That's good. So you hinted there you may have made it go further now.
In what way?
Well, you said what the range was when you started. What's the range of it now? Is it,
oh, right.
Has it gone down?
It's gone down a little bit. It's gone down. It's probably a solid 80 miles in the summer, 75, 80, but it can be as low as 55 in the winter if it's been a cold overnight and it's cold during the day and you have to have the heating on to defrost the windows, keep them going. So it's lost a bit, but if it had a range of 200 miles to start with and you'd lost the same sort of 12, 14 miles range, it wouldn't be an issue. But when you're starting with such a small range, you notice it. But it hasn't stopped me yet.
So you're not thinking of replacing it?
I am thinking of replacing it, but more on the basis that I need a slightly bigger van.
Right.
So it isn't a range issue. I won't deny it. But it's not that the job can't be done with what I've got. It's the fact that I need a slightly bigger van now because business has gone that way, and all the vans that are available today do 100 plus definitely, but most of them now do 150 plus. So
what are you tempted by?
Whatever I can get for the best price.
Yeah, but that's always the way, isn't it?
I've looked at all of them, all of the Stellantis group, the Peugeot and the Citroen and the Vauxhall and what have you. I've looked at the Maxus, the new ones that they're coming over from our friends. There's a good selection of mid-sized vans out there. Still very expensive, obviously. Yeah. But I've almost made my mind up. I'm going to keep it a secret for Twitter and YouTube.
Sounds People can watch your.
But
your
I haven't. But nothing's been signed. Nothing's been ordered as yet. But yeah, I've had. If you follow me, you'll know that I've had several different makes and models out on trial, and they all have their pluses.
Mm-hmm.
They all have a few minuses. Nothing's perfect. So we'll see.
So what would you say the most challenging part of owning an electric van is, and what's the best part of it?
Well, you see, now with modern technology, I don't think there is any sort of negatives to owning an electric van, because the best part of it is being a van. It's going to be, well, not always, but predominantly for business use, is the cost savings on both fuel and servicing, and the actual fact that if something does go wrong, there are fewer parts to go wrong, so it's less likely that something goes wrong. I can think of very few negatives, but I'm probably a little bit biased, but there's very few negatives, if any, to owning an electric van now. It used to be range, and it used to be price. Maybe that is one negative then. Maybe price is still the main negative.
Mm-hmm. So maintenance, which is an interesting one, because I know people who run van companies, and in fact, maintenance on diesels is really expensive anyway, isn't it?
Yep.
So what sort of cost has yours been to maintain over time?
Next to nothing. I mean, compared to a diesel, I've had the cabin filter changed a couple of times, which is 12 quid, I think. I've put a couple of sets of tyres on it, and with those you can spend as little or as much as you want to, but with it being an EV and with it being a business, you have to spend some quality tyres. But no, there's very little. Brake fluid change is probably the greatest expense, depending on where you go. That's probably anywhere between 120 and a couple of hundred quid. I've had the aircon regassed once, which was 100 quid. So I mean, compared to a diesel and the mileage I do, it would have been, oil filters, air filters, maybe diesel particle filter, clean or change, regen, whatever it is they call it. The cost savings are enormous. If you want to get statty, I would probably say 70%, 60 to 70% saving.
It's really amazing, really. And if you're running a fleet of vans,
if you start multiplying it up, then these large fleets that are switching to electric, like DPD, they're going to be saving. I wouldn't be surprised if it was hundreds of thousands of pounds, let alone tens of thousands of pounds.
My only complaint with people like DPD is I'd wish they'd get chargers in at their own depots rather than using the public ones.
I can't believe that either. I've had several people on Twitter and anecdotally at chargers saying, "Oh, you're lucky to get on there, mate. There's normally a DPD van on it." And some of them have been really cheeky and been charging at supermarkets overnight, which is free. But I think the reason is they're not actually DPD vans. I think they're owner operators, or they're leased from DPD, so they stick the signage on. And so, but then, like you, I think they should be supplying their own. I think that's a cop out from DPD to say, "Oh, well, it's not our problem." We'll
just use public charges.
I
mean, it's certainly an issue around where I live. There's two charges which I used to be able to use all the time, and now I can very rarely get on.
Really, it's that bad.
Yeah, so it's a shame, but it's. I mean, I'm all pro the idea of the electric vans and delivery around the city. That makes so much sense to me. I think that's definitely encourage that.
It's the charging that's the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, our local guy, because I've met him at chargers, so our local guy actually comes out of the Carlisle depot, and he's got a house with the driveway, so he leaves home fully charged. And I think now that he's got actually the Maxus, they've just given him a Maxus, so he's got a range of almost 200 miles. I think he probably either doesn't need to charge or charges just the once.
Yeah, that's what I was talking to one of the drivers, not a DPD one of the Amazon drivers. They've also got electric vans, and he was saying that the van he used to have, he was charging twice a day. The van he now has, he doesn't have to charge at all during the day. So.
Yeah, when I met the DPD guy, when he had the EMV 200, he was saying to me, and that was the 40 kilowatt version. He said to me, "Oh, it's brilliant," because this was obviously his first electric van, and he said, "Oh, it's brilliant, it's amazing. I'll never go back." Blah blah blah, the usual story. And he said, "I just wish it had another 30-40 miles range, because in the winter it pulls it back that little bit too much, and I have to stop for a charge. But now he's gone to the Maxus, he probably doesn't even need to charge. So
but one of the guys I was talking to was saying their normal logistics run over the day is about 120 miles.
I think his was about 120, 130, but obviously he doesn't get that with the heating on, because the large battery EMV 200 is probably 140 max, isn't it? 155 in the lovely warm summer's day, So.
It's great. I mean, it's fantastic to see this happening. I think it's really, really good to do. And
absolutely. And another, the bonus is they're doing it, and they're realising the cost savings. So they probably had 5 or 6 on trial, and thought, wow. And then they don't mess about because of the cost savings, and they order 600. This is.
And I've noticed that's actually seeping down to van hire as well now.
There are a few companies now where you can hire an EV, an electric van, and they promote it on the environmental side. If you're moving house or moving a flat, or you need to move some goods, do it the environmental way and hire an electric van, which I think is really good.
Yeah, there's a couple of
does me out of a job, but I'm not complaining.
Well, I guess there's always going to be people who actually want help doing that stuff, not doing it themselves. But it is interesting, because I've certainly seen that at our local. Although they tend to be very small vans.
And they also tend to do it's day hire, so it is local, and it is a one. It's not what I do, where it wouldn't be a long distance unless they can get there and back in the day, sort of thing. So horses for courses, but that's really good that they're doing it.
Yeah, it is good.
And I think the reason they're small vans is the availability of the larger vans and the cost of the larger vans.
Which I guess is changing.
The medium-sized vans are coming down in price. They're being discounted quite heavily. Unfortunately, the larger 3.5 ton vans are still pretty eye-watering for the average. Well, definitely for the average owner driver, but even for the small SME, they're still really top heavy. But when you get up to scale, you've got the buying power, but you've also got the cost savings to outweigh the overall massive cost of the van in the first place.
I guess that's true. I mean, there's still some pretty eye-watering small vans. I was looking at the Morris JE, which is a lovely bit of kit.
But I think that's very niche.
It is very niche.
And when it finally goes into production, I think it will be. It will find its market. Yeah. You'll see them about. You won't see many of them about, but there'll be those companies that need them as marketing tools and artisans and all the rest of it. It will have its place, and it's a thing of beauty. I mean, I've looked around it at the show today and yesterday, and if I had one, I wouldn't put anything in it. It's beautiful.
It is a beautiful vehicle. Certainly. I mean, you can do retro. And that is definitely doing it right.
It's very clever. Whoever the design team were, they've thought about it, and they've taken it just far enough. Because I mean, essentially, you could have just done the old one. What was wrong with the older one? But they haven't. They've given it a future, well, not futuristic, but a modern spin, and yet it still holds the essence of the original J-Type. So it's very nice.
It is a very beautiful looking vehicle, and the interior as well. I mean, I was actually impressed with the interior of it compared to what I have expected.
I mean, that is going to be a handmade prototype, so they will have done the best of the best. But did you notice the side door rail? It's got a sliding side door, but there's no side door rail.
I didn't notice that.
Take another look. They've somehow. I couldn't. They normally won't let you open it. I said, go on, let me have a look. And I had a look, and they just let me have a quick peek. And I couldn't work out how it's done. But there is no. That's how they get it to look so smooth. Because
I hadn't considered that, because it is a very smooth side.
Because there is no horrible, the nasty side door. So have a look if really you get ready. It's that, again, just one of those little touches. One of those little touches.
And as you're right to say, it is going to be that marketing artisan van. I mean, we were looking at this saying, well, should we get one for when we come down to shows and run the studio out of it?
Did we actually say how much it is? I don't know.
It's expensive. It's not that sort of expense.
No, it's nice. It's nice.
It almost costs as much as my iPace. But that's good. But that's the other thing I was going to talk about, because I was talking to Jonathan earlier about the second-hand car market and how that's gone crazy at the moment. Prices. Is it the same true on vans? The second-hand?
Yeah. The second-hand van market again is supply and demand. There's all these new vans coming out, and people are saying, electric vans. Oh right, yeah, we should switch. Technology's moving on. It's getting good. Blah blah blah. And then they either look at the price of the new vans and think, ooh, or they go and try and buy a new van, and some of the lead times are as much as 10 to 12 months, depending on the model. Some of them you can have in a few weeks. And so it's a very strong prices for EMVs and others at the moment, yeah.
So it's probably not the best time to buy, but maybe in a few months' time.
Well, what's happened is it's not just electric vans; it's vans in general, because of the home deliveries through COVID and the shortage of that, and everybody expanding and everybody ordering 3 things a week. It's everybody's been out for vans, and the other thing is people have been furloughed or completely let off jobs, and have gone to be owner drivers at these large companies. So the actual need for vans, regardless, is crazy.
Well, thanks for spending some time with us today. That's been really, really eye-opening, actually. It's been great to talk to you. We'll try and get you back on the show again in a little bit of time. I was just going to last bit, I hit my 15-minute limit.
Oh, right.
Let's do that again. So thanks for being on the show. Fantastic to have you on. Real eye-opener, very informative. We'd love to have you back on again.
Anytime.
Talk about
it's
this,
a pleasure.
And maybe get some readers' questions as well, listeners' questions, because we do get those through, and people will be interested in answering. And I know you spend a lot of your time clearing up fear, uncertainty and doubt. Yeah,
I've been down on, so far I've been down on the commercial vehicle stand, and I've done the Electric Vehicle Association stand this morning. So I've been doing my bit.
Well, carry on doing the good work, and thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.